You know, they say you spend your whole life learning lessons, how to tie a knot that holds, how to read the weather in the clouds, how to trust your gut. But sometimes, the biggest lesson comes when you're just lying on your back, under an old truck, minding your own business. I was 70 years old when I found it. My hands were slick with oil, the familiar, gritty smell of the garage all around me. I was doing a simple thing, changing the oil on my pickup, a ritual I'd done 100 times. But that day, my fingers brushed against something metal, something that wasn't part of the truck. It was small, smooth, and it was magnetized, clamped tight to the frame like a metal tick. I shined my light on it. A little black box, and on its side a tiny red light, blinking, steady, patient. But here's the detail that changed everything, that turned a strange find into a cold dread in my stomach. The device was warm, not engine warm, hand warm, like someone had just been there, just attached it, just walked away. At 70 years old, why would anyone need to know where I was going? What did a retired man, who mostly drove to the hardware store and back, have that was worth tracking? I didn't yell, I didn't panic. I got very, very quiet, and then I ran an experiment. I carefully took that tracker off my truck, and I mailed it far, far away to a random address in another country. I didn't tell a soul. I just put it in a box, dropped it at the post office, and went home. And then I waited, I watched, I listened. 12 hours later, the phone calls started, but not to my phone. My son's phone, ringing and ringing, a sound so frantic it cut through the quiet of my house. And when I saw his face as he looked at the screen, the color just drained from it, white as a sheet. That's when I knew exactly who had put the tracker under my truck. But knowing who was only the beginning, what came next was a revelation that threatened to dismantle my entire life, piece by piece. Before I tell you what happened next, you have to understand the before, the quiet. I'm 70. I live on a ranch I've owned for 40 years. My world is small, and I like it that way. It's the smell of cut hay, the creak of the porch swing, the reliable rumble of that old truck. My son, he's grown, has his own life, his own struggles, but he comes around, helps out, or at least he used to. Age gives you a certain kind of sight. It's not about seeing more, it's about seeing deeper. You notice the gaps in a story, the wrong note in a voice trying too hard to sound right. You learn the weight of silence, and you learn the immense power of patience, not the waiting to speak kind, the watching, to understand kind. So when I found that device warm under my fingers, I didn't do what the old me might have done. Rage, accuse, confront the new me, the 70-year-old me, just got very still. I took pictures with my phone. I noted exactly where it was, how it was attached. Then I slid it into my pocket like I'd found a strange rock, and I went inside. I sat at my kitchen table, that little black box sitting in front of me like an uninvited guest. And I thought, who had been near my truck? The list was short. The kid who delivers my feed, my neighbor borrowing a wrench, and my son, who'd borrowed the truck just the week before, saying he needed to move a couch. This is where the patience came in. I didn't go anywhere. I left the truck parked right in the garage. I didn't mention a thing to anyone. 2 days of perfect silence. Then, my phone rings. It's him. "Hey, Dad." His voice was light, but there was a thin wire of tension running underneath it. "Just checking in. Everything okay? How's the truck running?" "Did you catch that?" He didn't ask how I was. He asked about the truck. I told him it was fine, just parked for now. There was a pause. Then his voice tightened. "Parked? How long? Where are you taking it? Is something wrong with it?" The questions came in a rush, one after the other. No space between them. That wasn't a son's concern. That was panic. Someone who'd lost their eyes. Someone who was blind. The calls kept coming. Always a casual lead in, always steering back to the truck's location. That's when the first piece of the truth clicked into place, cold and hard. The tracker was for him, but why? That night, sleep wouldn't come. A new, darker thought arrived. If he was tracking the truck, how else was he watching? My house is old. My computer is old. I remembered, months back, my internet had been slow. My son had come over, fussed with my laptop for an hour, said he'd fixed it. I got up, went to my office, turned on that old computer. I looked not at the screen, but under it, in the programs running in the background, and there it was, a remote access software, installed the very day he'd fixed my internet. It would let someone see everything I did, every website, every password I typed. I didn't delete it. I just stared at the screen, the blue light washing over my face in the dark room. This wasn't about checking on an old man. This wasn't about safety. This was about control. The next morning, I made calls to a mechanic I've trusted for 30 years, to a lawyer who handled my wife's estate. What I learned turned the dread into a kind of cold, clear fury. The device wasn't just a tracker. The mechanic told me with the right signal it could be used to do more, to interfere, to cause a failure, and the lawyer found something else. Inquiries, paperwork. Someone had been probing quietly about my assets, my property, my competence. The full picture emerged, and it was ugly. It was a portrait of desperation, debt, bad choices, and a terrible, terrible plan. I didn't run, I didn't hide, I prepared, I documented everything. I installed small, discreet cameras. I began recording our phone calls legally in my state. I built a case, not as a detective, but as a heartbroken father building a wall to survive. Then, I invited him over, just him. When he walked in, I saw my boy in his face, the one I taught to fish, the one whose scraped knees I bandaged. It almost broke me, almost. I didn't shout. I didn't wave the evidence in his face. I just sat him down, looked him in the eye, and very quietly said, I found the tracker under my truck. I know about the software on my computer. I want you to tell me why. And he, shattered, the facade crumpled. It all poured out, not with anger, but with heaving, shameful tears. The debt, the threats from people he owed, the desperate, monstrous idea that if something happened to me, if I was somehow not around, his problems would be solved. He claimed he never would have gone through with it, that he was just scared, just gathering information, but the line had been crossed. The trust was not just broken, it was pulverized. I listened until he had no more words. And then I did the hardest thing I have ever done. I protected myself. I gave my documentation to the authorities. I let the law, not my breaking heart, decide what happened next. Months have passed now. The ranch is quiet, peaceful again. Some mornings I sit on the porch with my coffee, watching the sun rise over this land I worked for, land I almost lost, not to strangers, but to my own blood. People ask if I'm angry, sometimes, but more than that, I'm sad. They ask if I regret turning him in, and I'll tell you this, no, I do not, because love does not mean allowing yourself to be destroyed. And silence in the face of wrong is not strength, it's surrender. So here's what 70 years taught me in the end. Trust the chill that runs down your spine when something isn't right. Document first. Speak later, protect your peace because no one else will do it for you. Blood is a powerful bond, but the will to survive is stronger. And if my story, this story of a warm tracker under an old truck, helps even one person listen to that quiet voice of warning before it's too late, then breaking my own heart to tell it was worth it. Never ignore your instincts, and never, ever believe that age makes you powerless. Sometimes, the deepest wisdom is simply knowing when to stay silent, and when, finally, to stand absolutely firm.
This emotional grandpa story from the Grand's time machine shares real-life lessons and nostalgic family wisdom for mature audiences. If you enjoyed this story, tap like, subscribe, and comment. Respect matters. Your engagement helps us bring more stories to life.